Hi everyone. How's it going? This is Ranger. Bard had to step out briefly for an important conversation, but we will just get started. With some... Oh, here she is.
Sorry, guys.
So, just saying we could get started with some news that we will be going to PowerCon in March, on March 14th in Florence. It's a one-day convention about comics, and it should be really great. It's pretty big. There are a lot of other comic artists, freelance artists, and vendors of many types of comics. As I understand, mostly comic books, but they welcomed us with open arms, so that was a good sign.
Yeah.
They didn't even ask to see our product this time. They were just like, we saw your website. It's cool. We'd love to have you. So
yeah, because really AtomaCon was all like, and MultiverseCon too was like, we need to see your displays and your this, that, and the other, because they wanted to make sure we were worth their time, but they seemed to think that our comic on its own had merit, so that was awesome. We are having some technical difficulties. Wait 1 second, guys.
Sorry, I'm trying to get all the links to send out and still get all of this started and all of that, and turns out that it was just really mad for some reason.
Which you should. Because as we all know, according to Google and Facebook, and they might not be wrong, I am a witch. Okay. But yeah, so PowerCon is going to be exciting. We're hoping to have either an exclusive print or pin for PowerCon as well, just like we did for AtomaCon. And we're not 100% sure what the design for that is going to be yet. It is not this. This is just something I was actually working on before the stream. I worked on a while ago and then was staring at for something else I was working on. But that is neither here nor there. Is my mouse put back there? Yes, it is. Sorry guys, this is about to be loud. But yeah, so we are going to work on the new page. And it's going to take me a minute to find it, apparently. There we go. So as we said last week, it has gone through some different, some changes and some different layout decisions, which we all knew were coming, and more yet may still come. But if it will ever load, we will see that some progress has been made. Not as much as I would have liked over the week, but I've had a very long week, and my day job is changing drastically very soon. So,
yeah.
It has not been opportune, nor was it an opportune holiday to get any work done, and that's just kind of how that goes sometimes. Sorry guys, I just got a message regarding small vials of mercury, and that just doesn't seem like it should be legal. Oh goodness. Especially not when they're coming from your kid's sister. But
Yes. So, and the other good news is that we've determined that conventions for us are fairly viable. I mean,
yes.
Everyone but AtomaCon at AtomaCon told us that AtomaCon was really small and not
successful
and not a good con.
Yep.
And
except for the staff, who were like, would you like to give us some feedback? And we did, and they were like, your feedback is stupid and we don't want it.
And
So
you're
there's
welcome
that.
to submit it, but it's not good. And I was like, oh, well, guess what? No one here thought your con was good. So, I mean, it's not true. That's not. But everyone was disappointed with the turnout. I think.
Yeah. I think because most of the people who were there had been there previous years, and they said that it was just like alarmingly slow compared to the previous years. And apparently, it's normally held in a much bigger location, and so a lot of people thought it might be related to that, and that the hotel's layout was kind of prohibitive for the artist alley and vendors. And I think they weren't entirely wrong. And most of the staff probably would have been open to the idea of that. But just this one random old dude we talked to was like super grumpy. But that's how a lot of old people are.
But it was still successful for us.
Yes.
We made back our purchase price, got to meet a bunch of new people, and found some of our people. So it was very good. And so I think this PowerCon will be really good for us because the turnout is, from all reports, much, much higher.
Yes, and people who read comics tend to often be our people, shall we say? So, yeah. So we're gonna work on some stuff here.
Okay, Twitter. I need to know why.
I'm sorry, I'm zooming in and out all the time. I'm trying to decide what. Actually, guys, I may have to. My program is lagging and it doesn't usually do this, and so I am gonna, I think, restart it really fast. Ah, there's an update. That might be why. Well, it's not getting done because they didn't tell me until right now. Okay, yeah, that's better. All right. So yeah, today we're gonna be doing some layout work for next week's page, as I said, and you'll probably see a lot of it changing and running about and being a little less detailed than it usually is, but that is, a lot of that is because we've had a very just remarkably busy week. But PowerCon seems exciting, and like I said, keep an eye out on all our social media because we'll probably have an exclusive PowerCon pin or something similar. Wow, this is fabulous 80s hair, but it's not Shale's hair. We'll probably have something similar to what we did for AtomaCon going on for PowerCon. And that's
almost certainly a similar Patreon deal.
Yeah. We haven't 100% worked out all the kinks because we just got accepted, but that's the story of my life.
And then other good news is if you like what you've seen with our character cast prints, you can now have the opportunity to win a free one. You have two opportunities to win a free physical art print of one of the cast. If you go to our Facebook and Twitter and like and share and like the page or follow the Twitter handle, and you will be eligible to receive a free print on the 23rd, I think, is when we're giving it away.
Yeah, that's
on the next art stream.
Yep. So there is a specific post that you just find and like and retweet for Twitter.
Yes, the competition.
Yep. And then on Facebook, I think you like and share it and just make sure that you are following the page or the Twitter account, as the case may be. And
if you're a patron, you will instead win a collage of all of them.
Yes.
Framed in a glass frame.
Yes. So that's cool too.
And I'm talking to all you patrons. Go over to the Twitter and like and share on the Twitter.
Wow, I totes.
Because no one has yet. So your odds of winning are very high.
Right. And if you don't, your odds of winning are phenomenally low.
Perfectly zero.
Yes.
But yeah, we wanted to give back to everybody in the December month of giving, and we love you guys, so we want to give out some of our prints.
Yes. It's going to sound incredibly arrogant, because it kind of is, but I like them a lot, and I have stolen 2 for my own room, because my room, much like the room of any 13-year-old boy, is full of prints or art or posters or etc. of sexy ladies. So that trend had to continue. And I'm not really used to posting my own stuff around the house. In fact, I once made a poster for a roommate who decided that the poster needed to hang in the living room, and because I am a gross overachiever, it was not just a poster. It was a poster as tall and wide as I am, and so it took up quite a lot of space on the living room wall, and it tormented me every day. So, yeah. But I'm getting a little more comfortable with that aspect, and I am also breaking all the rules I just told you guys about last stream, which is don't hyper focus on details and just get your things laid out first. But that is such a struggle for me, especially when I am talking to people. So we're gonna work on some gesture sketching, which is what we're supposed to do. That's what you're always supposed to do. And I tell you guys that I do it, and then it looks like a lie because I forget about it on stream, but that's not right. Okay.
You can't hold us to what happens on the stream.
No. What happens on the stream stays on the stream.
Please, YouTube.
Please.
But, I mean, we had to rework a few things, and I think we've gotten really solid new plan, and I think this is going to be a great page. It's going to be very interesting.
I think that Aintai and Alex are hot.
That too.
That's what I think, and I think this
frankly,
page will reflect
so
that.
is Shale.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people think so is Lowen, and I'm kind of sort of among them. I have like a love-hate relationship with Lowen and his design. I don't know why, but sometimes I look at him and I'm like, and then other times I look at him and I'm like, ugh. And it seems to depend entirely on my mood, which is unusual for me, especially because I'm a little bit of a horny thought, and basically everyone is hot to me as a general rule. But I mean, Lowen is silver dragonkin, so I can get away with saying he's not hot because he would be insulted by that, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's super cold.
He's very, very cold. Technicalities, the basis upon which we all survive.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Or die.
Or die, because I'm not a BCABA because of technicalities.
And also,
or a therapist.
I don't have the proper medication that I need because of technicalities. Yay! Yeah. So, at risk of getting into a long rant about pharmaceutical companies and how they basically are criminal, and I'm starting to conspiracy theorize that they are committing eugenics upon the mentally ill.
It's incidental. They're just preying on the mentally ill.
Oh, there you go.
Because that's better.
They're not trying to purge us from society. They're just coincidentally purging us from society because they're trying to suck every ounce of blood and finances.
You did hear about the report from Goldman Sachs that said curing cancer is unsustainable.
Yes.
I mean, they don't want to get rid of anybody.
Anyway, at risk of getting into a long conspiracy theory and angry conversation about pharmaceuticals companies, I had a bad run-in with the pharmacy today, as I do almost every time I go to a pharmacy.
Yeah. We just, we need more clerics. like Nerida.
We do. Who just
Lesser
radiate.
restoration me, mommy.
And if you can't, just please crush me to death between your thighs. I'll take either. At this particular point.
They're both therapeutic.
Yep, one's just a more burn for. Sorry, guys, I thought I muted my phone appropriately over sexual laughter as a text tone. Alright. So, yeah. Apparently, today, my drawing rocks the table. Because, I escaped the squeaky chair and the squeaky mouse, and now I have a shaky table.
You're not safe for work rocks all of us, if you know what I mean.
Thanks. I try.
Sir Peter says, crushing and lesser restoration.
I feel like the lesser restoration would be wasted by your head being crushed by her powerful thighs. Now, crushing and a heal spell, or a continuous cure minor wounds, so that just as you're about to die, she brings you back to the brink of life. But that seems a little bit like it might be more torturous than sexual.
You just need a crushing restoration.
There you go. Like Bigby's crushing hand, but more holy?
Nerida's powerful thighs, the spell.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if I were a wizard who knew Nerida, I would write something like that. I am 100% sure.
For those lonely nights.
But my wizard also wrote a bigger, blacker tentacles spell. So, you can't really... You can't really give me a lot of credit. I'm going to find a way to make it...
So you're gesture drawing low in here, right?
Yes. And I'm not even properly gesture drawing.
I was going to ask, how do you make sure his horns are always pointing in the right direction? That seems difficult.
Way to call me out. I don't.
Oh, okay.
I just know about what they're supposed to look like.
And you get them about in the right spot.
And I get them about in the right spot, and then I go back and I look at them and I go, is this right? And then depending on how much time I have before the page has to post is whether or not I tweak it or go, it's closey fucking enough.
I mean, that's kind of what it seems like, unless you had... Probably, if we could hire an art assistant, they could be in charge of something like that. But that otherwise it's not perhaps really worth all the effort you could put into it.
Frankly, if I had more experience with animals and horned creatures and just perspective in general, that's a huge part of it. So, okay, we're about to go off on an art rant, right? So anything, basically, if you know the rules of perspective and you follow them properly, which is incredibly fucking difficult to do, and I'm probably going to fuck it up just in this tutorial. But basically anything, as long as you know where it's supposed to be on something, and you make sure that your perspective goes to the right spots, it technically should be right. Unfortunately, my technical knowledge of perspective is shitty, because no matter how many times I have had it explained to me or read entire books about it, it's math. And I hate it.
Right.
But my eye for things tends to be naturally in the area of the correct perspective. Because
full 50% of what you just said is making sure it's in the right spot on the thing.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. It sounds like it's difficult on Lowen's head, because you have to show us Lowen's head from whatever perspective, right? It's not always him looking at the camera,
right?
The camera, as it were. So,
in my college art class, like the only one I took, before I went to work for GameStop and it destroyed my life, I actually excelled in all of my perspective classes, but when asked about perspective or tested on perspective, failed it miserably. Or not classes, assignments, I mean. And my teacher would always be like, I don't understand how you're failing this fucking bubble test about perspective, but you just brought in the top graded assignment on perspective. And I was like, I know how to make things look good. I just don't understand the terminology and the math.
Right.
And so she was like, this is a technical art course. And I was like, yes, I understand this. And that's why I'm not good at it. But so, as one of the things I have seen explained to me about perspective is like, for instance, if you have a person's head, he used a jaguar head, but I can't whip out a jaguar head like he can. You will always have perspective lines going through anything, even if it's a round plane, right? So, if their head is like super tilted over to the side, you'll want your perspective lines to kind of reflect that, and so they, your eye like on one side will be drawn higher than on the other side because they're like, they're tilted, their head is tilted, and this is whoever this person is. They're ugly, so maybe this is how I should start drawing my monsters so they're not all daddy as fuck. But yeah, so, and then like if you have one line like this, well, okay, you just follow the next one for like their eyebrows. That way you keep their eyebrows in the same spot, and one is lower than the other. And then theoretically with Lowen, you should be able to do one for his horns at the base of his horns, and then for his horns at the top of his horns. And so it technically should, well, I did that all wrong, but technically it should work about like that. But it doesn't always, and sometimes they just are wrong. But luckily, I have a fairly decent knowledge of the human head, despite what this picture makes it look like. And slapping horns on a human head is nowhere near as difficult as, say, putting wings on a bipedal human character. Not looking at you or anything, maybe.
Right. Especially when the wings aren't also their arms.
Yes, because if the wings were actually their arms, they would work just like bird wings, which is what you're supposed to study to understand wings, but they're not. They're just pasted on their back, and then their arms are down here, and then they don't fold right, and it makes me really
And they should
mad.
have super intense back muscles.
Yes, which Mimi does. Now, we haven't seen them yet, but there will eventually be a nude scene with Mimi where you will see them, and I look forward to drawing them because I have a weird thing for back muscles. They're hot.
Also, it's going to be hot.
Yes.
But only available to our Not Safe for Work patrons because we can't put that one on the website.
Right. Now, there will probably be a version of it in which you will still see some back muscles. You just won't see anything else. But yeah. So there will be a Not Safe for Work version of it and a Safe for Work version of it. And either way, there will probably be back muscles involved. And I like drawing back muscles because they're sexy. Fight me.
I was talking to one person who was like, I don't care what a man looks like. If he's got definition in that muscle right along underneath the pectoral muscle,
she
right
says,
along
the ribs.
Then he's hot. And I was like, you do you.
No, it's a true story. Like, I mean, one of my favorite angles in the world to draw dudes from is actually kind of the angle that that Lowen is presented in. On the website, where you have like this shoulder mass, and then you've got shoulder blades, and you get to draw all this like
beefy boy
through here. Yes. And then like if you're super into people being like swole, you can bring their hands around like. Anyway, the point is, back muscles are sexy on both men and women, and it was the only redeeming feature of the entire Legend of Korra cartoon was her back muscles. So
fight us, I guess. But
if anyone was curious, I fucking hated the Legend of Korra, and I could dedicate this entire stream to explaining why, or I could just.
Well, let's just suffice it to say, someone called our comic fan art of Korra, and I was like, just go away. I liked the first season of Korra until he said that, and I was like, now I have to hate it because he ruined it.
I mean, the first season was pretty good. It had some things in it that I strongly disliked, like taking a cartoon whose origins were all in super duper richly researched Asian cultures and then going, how could we make this better? America it. And setting the whole thing in Republic City, which is like
Boston.
Post-industrialized Boston. So there was that, which I kind of didn't super like the setting, but there also was some interesting aspects of it, like firebenders getting blue-collar jobs, running energy mills and stuff. And, I'm not saying I hated all of it, but everything after Season 1 was trash, and the end of Season 1 was trash, and even most of the art was trash, particularly compared to the previous series, because they overcomplicated all of their character designs, which is like the number one no-no in animation. And Korra, at any given point, had like 16 different dangly objects they had to draw, which is, spoiler alert, why she suddenly got a haircut. But also, don't write a story surrounded entirely by, or wrapped entirely in political over and undertones if you don't fucking understand politics, guys.
But mostly don't compare our comic to it without evidence other than just, no, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Because that's all that person was able to present.
It's like, well, if you look at Narita, she doesn't actually look anything like Korra, except that they both have strong back muscles, which were not visible in the picture they were looking at.
And they're not small.
And they're also not small.
And Narita's even bigger than Korra.
Yeah, quite a bit. Korra is, a fairly tall lady. If you compare her to the male cast, she's only a little bit shorter than, say, Bolin and Mako. But, like, Narita is 7 feet tall and some change.
Would be the tallest in the cast, save for Lowen.
She is technically taller than Lowen.
Is she even taller than him with his...
Well, he is 6 feet and some change, and his horns do go up a little, but they mostly curve down first.
Down, yeah.
So if... And they haven't ever really stood side by side in the comic,
Yeah,
but if they
taller
did,
than...
she would be a little bit
Our
taller
tallest
than
cast
him.
member then.
Mm-hmm. And she'll be our tallest cast member for a long while.
Yeah.
And then she will suddenly be not the tallest cast member. But can't spoilers about that. But anyway. So yeah, Lowen actually is quite tall, but Narita is just ginormigantic. And she's hot. And yep, so we're gonna do some Lowen isms here, and they're not gonna be 100% right, but it's okay. We'll fix it later because we just gotta kind of get going here and not get on another Korra rant. But if you really want to know why the Legend of Korra is garbage, there's a YouTuber who did an excellent, very comprehensive 3-hour-long video about it. Their name is Lily Orchard, and you can find them, and they even have one about Steven Universe too. But
let's not get everyone to hate our comic.
Let's not make everyone angry in one stream. So anyway, I was just very happy to find said YouTuber because I am often alone in my strong opinions about things that other people like. But yeah, so we have, we're supposed to have some, like, action sequence, and I forgot that we have little Cheshire arms here.
Yes, can't forget them.
Little Cheshire head here. That's about it. That's the extent of...
Well, they have to be very careful when they're holding on.
Also, their arms aren't much bigger than that.
That's also true.
They're small, and it's okay. It's okay to be small.
Yeah, they're they're trying.
They're trying so hard. They're just not very good.
They're cute though.
They are, and I'm cute. I get by is a valid life philosophy for most
I'm cute.
bards.
I get by, and I play music.
And that's show me a bard who doesn't live that way.
Bunny.
Okay, fair enough.
It's the only one I can think of. Though.
Fair enough. He did play a frenzied barbarian who
It's a berserker.
was a berserker whose bard perform oratory and
Chanted angry poems of the destruction of his people as he bashed people to death
with other people.
Or
a door.
And then, preferred his sword, but that often got taken away.
So I thought I was going to be the murder hobo when I set out I set out and created a character who was an assassin. I was wrong. He was not.
You were playing the precise murder hobo. I was playing the will murder anything hobo.
Yes.
But literally hobo didn't have a home or pants.
Mine had pants, but no home. And was almost traumatized by the barbarian's pubic hair because mine didn't. Mine was an elf, and they don't grow pubic hair. Spoiler alert.
But yes, so that was the one bard I can think of that didn't get by being cute, but got by being a 200-year-old angry dwarf, old angry dwarf. And
I think that's probably true for most dwarves. Most dwarven bards are probably old and angry and not cute.
Scalds.
Yep. Yeah. But like anyone but them.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah. I think there's one extremely powerful bard for whom that is still the case. Extremely powerful 10-year-old bard. But yeah, so bards are
good.
They are, and I love them. But usually they have to be really, 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 really high level to have any form of self-proficiency.
Yeah.
And even then, you don't get to be a high-level bard without a bunch of friends surrounding you, protecting you. So typically, their self-proficiency is still way outclassed by the rest of their party who have gotten to be high level with them.
Yeah, I mean, Balim will probably never take another level of bard. It's true. 3 is enough.
Yep.
He implants suggestions with his fists, not with magic.
Right. Wow, I'm just having a go of it.
But I mean, long story short is D&D is great, and we still play other D&D than just this one. But
yeah, in fact, we play other D&D more than this one nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be very careful with this one and make sure it stays on track. And that's not like to say that I limit anybody and what they can do and all of that, but I have to do an order of magnitude more prep for this than I do any other one.
Well, especially as far as it's gone now, that nothing is standardized.
Yes.
So.
And so essentially, we get through to a point I've pre-selected and have everything prepared to, and then we go on hiatus and play something else that requires far less effort for me because I have a job.
I do right now!
I mean, it's gotten to the point where I'm taking on a co-GM. We'll see how that goes. I hope it goes well. I have to learn to play nice with someone else as the GM.
Okay, but it is your wife. So if there's anyone you're gonna play nice with, it's probably...
Well, what I mean is, am I going to be able to... Is there enough for me to have someone else have fun and still do,
It's kind of like me training people as a manager. I think it will be hard to let enough hands-off happen to...
And because I've never co-GM'd, ever. It's quite a prospect. Never needed to.
Yeah. But it's just gotten so huge now that...
There's a lot. But, it still needs to be fun for the co-GM,
Right.
They're not my employee.
True.
But at the end of the day, it's going to be kind of a job.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, DMing is kind of a job.
Right.
But it's a good job. A job I love.
Yeah, I mean,
But anyway, we do other D&D simultaneously, too. We play that one every other week when we do play it.
Yeah.
Because it's People usually need a week to cool down. I put them through the ringer.
Tensions get a little high. I am not going to list how many times I've cried at this table because I no longer can count them.
To be fair, you can cry in other D&D too. It's not just that one.
Fuck you. Just because one of my most recent Facebook statuses is people say you shouldn't cry over spilled milk, and I'm over here like, bitch, I cry over everything. But
I
stop killing my dads, and I think the amount of crying I do at the D&D table will happen less.
I think I make it very emotional for everyone.
With a few exceptions. It's not your fault.
Yeah, the person already has the hardest time.
No. Oh gosh.
Anyway, we've been playing like
4 years.
4 years. And it goes on hiatus every now and again, and we do something else. And we've done a lot of things. I get to have a lot of fun with this group because they're so consistent. I think I sent a message the other day just being like, I love you guys, you're so consistent. I can always try out what I want to do. Like, we've played a Pokemon campaign, which was not just a Pokemon campaign, it was...
post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, it's what would happen if Pokemon decided that what had happened to them was wrong.
Rose up, destroyed society.
Right?
And turned it into real monsters.
And no longer viewed humans with affection and friendship.
Yep. And, that was fun. And we had several people or a couple of players who were, like, super Pokemon nerds. And they didn't do as well in that one as I did because I'm not a super Pokemon nerd. I don't actually dislike Pokemon. I have actually only ever played, and I'm about... Okay, now everyone for sure is going to hate us. I'm just destroying us on the stream. I've only actually ever played 2 legit Pokemon games, and that was Pokemon Yellow, which I played to completion as a kid, and then I bought Pokemon Black when it came out, and I wanted to get back into it because my kid sister was into it, and I worked at GameStop, and there was a lot of hype, and I was on a car trip to an out-of-state hospital where I played it for probably an hour and never picked it back up again.
Play Pokemon Go.
And then I have played Pokemon Go, but it's not quite the same. And also, my interest in Pokemon Go waned when they started introducing
trying to give you more cred. Stop it.
Right. Sorry. Anyway, I've played tons of Pokemon, and I'm good at it. But anyway, because I was not so caught up in the Pokemon aspect of it, my character had a little more personality.
And I show you all my Pokemon Sword stuff, and you go cool.
Yeah, I do.
Galarian Weezing, best Pokemon ever.
My Little Ponyta is pretty cute.
It's pretty cute. It is. I think I like Fire Ponyta.
Why is it not a fucking fairy type, though? Pokemon, you make me angry.
I just recently fought a Galarian Rapidash, and it was cool, but I just beat it to death with a steel Berserker Meowth.
Wow. So there you go.
But anyway.
But yeah, so we've played a Pokemon campaign. We've played 2 XCOM campaigns.
Yes.
Because we maybe didn't win the first one.
No. I homebrew everything now because it's just like... it's second nature to me these days.
Well, but also, I mean, there's something to be said for having a consistent group that you can trust with your homebrew stuff.
Right.
Like, a handful of people have been invited to the table outside of our standardized group. Most of them have not done super well. One of them has done very well. And we dialed him in at 60, which was really unfair to him, but he rolled with it, and it was a blast. But, that's the thing is, if you have a group that you can, for the most part, trust, you can experiment with a lot more stuff. Like, and we've actually had this conversation where I have said, like, yeah, I want to play a chaotic, evil, half-fiend, cross-dressing slut rogue, but I promise I won't derail your campaign misusing my alignment. And I think I am, like, the only player who can be trusted with said promise. I, as a DM, particularly being as inexperienced as I am, would never let that shit fly. I would be like, no, absolutely not.
Well,
Take that elsewhere.
My standard answer is no one can be evil unless everyone's evil. Because it just generally doesn't work out. Because one person plays a paladin, and then there's the inevitable, well, who's stronger? Because there's going to be a fight.
But I have successfully played 2 evil characters.
Yeah.
And not wrought utter chaos upon the party.
Well, and the party knows their limits. Like, we have a friend that tried to play something lawful good, and he realized it's not for him, and so he re-rolled a different character.
Yep.
You know, I mean, we kind of know a lot of our limits for what people find, what each individual member of the group finds fun and don't find fun.
Yep. And I mean, truthfully, I really like playing a large variety of characters, and alignments and etc. A lot of my characters do have certain things in common. Like, I have a disproportional amount of them that are princesses and or queens.
And have undercuts.
Fuck you.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But like I said, I've now played a lawful good paladin princess. Fairy paladin princess. I have played a lawful good wizard arcane mechanic princess. I have played a bard that's all over the place with alignment and social status, so that's still a work in progress. And I have played I've played 2 lawful evil characters and 1 probably true neutral with a lot of chaotic evil tendencies, 10-year-old. But I don't really believe that a 10-year-old who is just severely misguided can be truly evil, even though she acts evil a lot and uses a lot of evil means, which is why she wasn't truly evil, although the whole rest of the party sure thought she was.
At the very least, one member of the party thought she was.
Yeah.
The other members of the party just let it happen. Let it happen.
And the ones that didn't got replaced. Because Zuri was a little dictator, but you know what? She had to save the world.
And grown-ups can't do it because they're dumb.
And grown-ups can't do it because they're stupid, so she needed an army of children, which she got.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. That one was fun.
Yep. But she was actually for how brazen she was and how offensive she seemed to be to the whole party, she actually was a fairly nuanced character, which most people didn't realize because they didn't know her backstory, because 1, they never asked, and 2, if they had, they probably would have killed her. So, there's that. And frankly, my XCOM lawful evil character was much more nuanced than my fantasy lawful evil character, who was basically a Saturday morning cartoon villain who shops at Hot Topic. But I enjoy playing different races and genders and sexualities, and I swear that's true, even though all of my characters radiate more gay energy than you would ever possibly imagine.
A lot of people don't like playing a different gender. But I think D&D offers the unique opportunity to play something that isn't yourself, and to do it, you can be racist, you can be disrespectful, but you don't have to be, and you can respectfully and in a way you could never do in real life, engage with something and learn about it in a very safe way for both you and for that group, right?
Yep.
And, I think that's a really good thing, because, we've seen at the table that we've had people go, wow, is that really what a woman or man would be like in this situation? The opposite of them.
Yeah.
You go, yeah, it really is.
Yep.
This is not just me making something up. This is rooted in reality.
And it's really funny to see you play a female NPC, and one of our male players gets extremely frustrated and flustered trying to talk to you, and he's like, "Why are you being so difficult?" And then all the girls,
every female
at the table is like, "That because that's exactly what we'd say, and your difficulty is with women."
I've been told I roleplay women better than some women.
Yes, it's a true story. But yeah, and a lot of it is about being able to
Well, it's
take
understanding
yourself
people.
out. Right, is to being able to take yourself out of your own mindset and understand someone else's perspective, which
Yeah.
frankly,
Because pro tip, men and women are both people.
yes,
Men,
imagine that.
women, and everything. We're all people. It doesn't matter if you're non-binary. Doesn't matter if you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. We're all people, you
Yep.
know? And that's the most important thing. The most important thing we all have in common.
Because frankly, most of those things have very, very little impact on the way you act or feel or interact with other people.
Except for in the way you're treated when you identify it.
Right,
Which has
exactly.
the huge
I mean,
amount. But it's not an inherent impact. It's the way you're treated by society.
Right. It's an impact that is put upon you by
And
other
unfortunately,
people.
usually in a bad way.
Yep. And yeah, so it's
So suffice to
interesting
say,
see.
everything's welcome at the table, and that's why I think our comic tends to feel inclusive, is because we didn't, we don't care. We care that you're a person, and
Yep.
so everyone's allowed to play whatever they want to be.
Except a pixie.
Except no one can be a pixie. Dang it.
Except a pixie.
Now, if someone came to me with an extremely well thought out character concept that they really wanted to play
and was willing to give up the permanent invisibility.
And they sold to me that they needed the permanent invisibility, otherwise, yes, give it up. But they sold to me that this is like their dream for D&D. I wouldn't crush it. I'd be like, okay, we'll talk. But when someone's just like, I love you, Pixie, I'm like, no.
No. The answer is no.
The answer is no. Never again. The answer is never again.
Yeah.
The answer was not no the first time.
But you were young and
But
full
it is
of hope
now.
and innocence then.
And I was unaware of what could be done.
Right? Yeah, I mean...
Well, Sir Peter says, wait, why are pixies banned? Well, you know what? Because greater invisibility, which is an invisibility that can only be dispelled but can be by other magic, but can be freely reactivated the next round, coupled with powerful rogue abilities, just is a freaking headache.
Yes.
For me.
And it's a headache for anyone who isn't willing to just murder their player because they're mad at them.
And I love my friend Dan, and I hope he listens to this one day or watches the streams or reads the comic. I don't know if he does because I haven't heard back from him. But I love him to death, and he's a great player, and he is the reason why you have to approve spells outside of the 3.5 handbook. And why you cannot be a pixie at my table. And they were all great experiences, I have to say. But
learning experiences.
But they were good characters, and he did a great job, and he did it too good of a job. Because Dan's joy in life is foiling me as a DM. One of his joys in life, I should say. And he was very good at it. And it was very interesting every time.
But
when
not interesting the second time.
Not interesting the second time. I don't ever want the really cool like. So anyway, I guess I can talk about it. They had gone into Okay, so they had met these pixies, and these pixies were cannibalizing each other. And because the best part of a fairy is the fairy's wings. And the fairies were the ones to discover this. And fairies delight in eating other fairies, and they become, uncontrollably cannibalistic after their first taste of fairy flesh. Anyway, so this fairy queen is like, I need your help. And this has all come about because of the Jabberwock. And, we did this whole demented Alice in Wonderland, and I thought it was really cool, and I did a really great job, I thought. And so did the players, so I'm not just saying this. But anyway, the Jabberwock had corrupted the Mad Hatter and turned him into an insane, cannibalistic, murderous barbarian, and he was the final boss for this whole scenario. And he was this big raging dude, and Dan was like, I maximize empowered ray of fatigue him 6 times. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, he takes like 30 strength damage. And I was like, and it can't be saved because it was a raid. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, but spell resistance? Well, you see, I have greater spell penetration, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, he's a gibbering mass on the ground, and you go over and slit his throat. That was cool. How you feel good about yourself? Good.
Good. Thanks. Anyway, a giant red dragon rips open the sky.
No, I didn't do that. Anyway, it was delightful.
No, that was my terrible DMing.
It was delightful because they had a very difficult time getting to that point, and he had saved all of that, and it was really great. But I don't want to happen again.
Yep.
I don't need that headache.
That's a true story.
And like it just everything can be solved by invisibility and spells, and anyway. Like I said, I love Dan, and I hope he listens to this one day. But he was the really interesting, really great font of a few rules that exist now.
Yep. Now, luckily, I have only ever wanted to be metaphorical fairies, but one of our players is quite miffed that she couldn't be a fairy because she was just like, I want to be a fairy, and the answer was just no, and she was like, but why? So,
but it wasn't. I have this detailed, nuanced reason. It was, I want to be a fairy.
Yes.
I was like, well, what about a sprite or a Grig or a Nixie or a Naiad?
I think a Naiad or a Nixie would be fun to play, but.
And she's like, no, I want to be a pixie. And I was like, well, you know what? No.
Too bad.
I need to have fun too.
Right.
DMs need to have fun as well. And I don't particularly ascribe to the player versus DM mentality, but if that's what you want, I'll fight you. And
that's not what I want.
And if it's not, then we can work on it all together.
I want my beautiful fairy princess to have a Pegasus. I don't want to fight you.
And for the most part, I set up challenges and in stories and let them go, and then what happens is the result of the story, not my trying to be mean to you, not trying to win, quote unquote, win.
Yeah. I know a DM whose primary focus whenever he's planning a campaign is to figure out how to punish his players for doing basically anything, but particularly anything against what he wanted them to do. And he sucks.
Well,
he's a terrible DM. And
when my characters are winning, I feel like I'm winning too,
Right. Well, because I guess if you were playing with a room full of strangers who you didn't give a shit about, also that might be part of it, but
I mean, I did that in Japan, I still wanted to win.
When you see people who have been your solid player group and friend circle for like 3 years finally get to do the thing that they've been planning since like session 1, you can't help but be excited for them,
And everyone gets to participate, and it's a great experience.
It's like I think I put way too much work into this for how much.
When Ian finally gets his girlfriend's soul back, that's gonna be a great moment for everybody.
Except maybe her.
Well, you're maybe not wrong.
Sorry, Ian, love you. Anyway,
like these milestones that happen.
Right.
The
first time Cheshire will display not cowardice. It's coming. It's probably a year from now, but it is coming.
And it was a great moment. And it was a moment in which, a lot of people did a lot of cool things.
Yep.
Because it took the whole group to make that happen. And those are the moments that are wonderful.
Because they don't get to do shit on their own because they're a very small bard.
Yeah.
And not super...
And those moments where everybody looks at each other and goes, that was amazing. We're so proud of ourselves,
Right.
And I beam down on my players and go, see, look what happens when you guys freaking pay attention.
I pay very close
attention. I know you do. And Kristen does too. And not everyone always does else. But
I pay, one might even say sometimes, too much attention to every tiny, nuanced detail of everything. Which is sometimes why it takes me a while to figure out what's going on, because I have so many conspiracy theories in my head that I'm not sure which ones are potentially accurate and not.
Yeah, I occasionally get a message at like 5 a.m. going, wait! Are you telling me?
And he goes, I can neither confirm nor deny. And I was like, that's a yes!
Most recently, it was look, I'm not going to say what I think over text. I need to see your face in person so I can gauge
if I'm right or how far off I am, because I'm pretty sure I'm right, and if what you're doing is what I think you're doing is fucking brilliant, and I'm not gonna disrespect it by asking you in front of a bunch of people, but so I have to wait to get you alone, but also, I'm not gonna tell you what it is over text, because if I do, you can just be like, oh no, that's not it, and I'll never know, because I'll have to search for the subtext in a fucking text message. But if I can see your face, I'll know. And,
That was pretty funny.
that was right.
And I had been working on it for over a year, so it was pretty good.
And the thing is that once I realized it, I felt like, oh, I'm so slow. Like, duh. But also, I mean, sometimes you're busy thinking, my girlfriend is bad news. Women might be bad news. The Jod God is bad news. The evil God is a woman.
It's also turned out to be true.
Yep. Right for the wrong reasons, but still right.
But
my
it doesn't happen
reasons...
often for Gigi, so he doesn't care what the reasoning
Exactly.
is.
See, my reasoning actually behind it was a lot more nuanced than that. I was like, look at the way that this god fights. It's all through manipulation. Also, this god appears to people generally by possessing a woman's body, and they try to take out their enemies or convert them to their side rather than just murder them. Like, this just seems like the tactics of a desperate woman, not the tactics of a warmongering, hungry god. And I had a bunch of theories and things that kind of led to it, but my poor paladin was just like, women are the most infuriatingly hard to get away from and dangerous thing in the world. I'm pretty sure this evil god we're fighting is a woman. And he was right! But just not for the right reason. And I will never be accused of using meta information, having him just suddenly realize something without a reason. His reasons and mine were just very different. And yeah, so it was a delight. Most of my paladin's actions and thoughts are a delight. He's a very wholesome person with a disproportionate amount of sexual activity in his life for a wholesome monogamous person.
Well, I test every character.
Yeah, but for most people, the test isn't like have sex with 8 nymphs. I can't. It's just too terrible.
Yeah, no one feels bad for Gigi except Gigi.
And maybe Cloris.
Maybe Cloris.
She was
Aurelia does.
She was like, you know what? I know that for anyone else this would be an opportunity, but for you it's difficult. It's okay.
The trial of benefits.
He's like, that's my whole life.
That's women.
That's just women. He's like, ah!
He's a special being.
It's funny because when I talk about him like that, it sounds like he's super misogynistic, but he's not. He actually super loves and respects all the women in his life. It's just that he also fears them because they are all intellectually superior to him in a way that he understands but cannot combat. And so it's not like he's like, oh, women are the worst and I hate them. He's like, no, I love women and that's why it's a problem.
Yeah, if he hated them, he'd be significantly safer from their wiles.
Yes. Or if he were as gay as he seems, he would be significantly safer from their wiles.
He's so gay that a gay dwarf gave him his hat because he thought he was going to be a poor gay paladin.
That was going to get beaten up on and needed an ally in life. But nah, he just really loved that hat because he's extremely fabulous. He's just not actually gay. Like I said, all of my characters radiate a lot of gay energy, and a disproportionately small amount of them are actually gay. Now, to be fair, they're almost all gay or bi or asexual. Gigi is an exception in being as seemingly homosexual as he is, and yet not.
Is he your only like heterosexual cisgendered character?
Rosa.
Rosa.
I have only 2 heterosexual cisgendered characters. And they were both made within a week of each other, actually.
I like the same haircut.
Also true. And they are the same age. And in a way, they are in very similar positions.
They could be brother and sister.
Yeah. Except that Gigi would die if Joe was his mom.
Yeah.
Joe would have kicked the shit out of that boy. But yeah, they could be. And Rosa is also a princess.
So
Very
how do you
technically.
decide when you put a slash of color on something when you're still in this stage? Like Aintai has her magic glow and
Shale's
Shale
tattoos.
has her tattoos.
Well, for Shale's tattoos, it's just a reminder to fucking put them there. Because I do sometimes forget. In fact, I only put the main ones and forgot the other ones. So for Shale's tattoos, it's usually like, that's just... Oh, well, those are ugly. Hang on. That is just part of Shale's line art, is I include her tattoos, and if I put them in black, they would be impossible to see. Like, for instance, I'll do the chin ones in black, and now it just looks like I scribbled there.
Right.
So...
You can't really tell. So that is
Yeah.
it's a help to you.
Yeah, so for Shale's tattoos, it's a help and reminder to me. For things like this lighting effect, it's usually just something that as I'm going along, I think, oh, this would look cool.
But it also helps remind you to
And
do
also, well, and also, so there's a, it is a little more complex than that. Like, so Aintai just cast a spell. So bearing in mind that she is going to have some, that she's going to have some residual casting energy is important to maintain consistency. But also, these panels are extremely dark because not only is this generally dark and gray, but in particular right now it's nighttime, and previously the only light source generally was Alex's torch or other magic, and Alex has, as you can see, gotten rid of the torch in favor of his bow. Shut up. Which it will turn out that the torch might have been a more effective weapon. But so there is always an aspect. I don't quite know what to call it. Like, it would be if this were written like as a script, it would be stage direction, which is, you know, essentially putting notes for your people where light sources need to be, and
Right.
etc. And so maintaining a light source in at least one panel of each of these is kind of important, because otherwise they are so dark that, for instance, this panel of Alex, you will virtually be able to see him. His eyes are going to be the brightest thing in this panel, because Alex makes it a point to blend into his surroundings, which is gray, dark, nighttime, and it's the grayest, darkest nighttime it could possibly be. And he's standing on his own, and nothing else around him is lit. So, for the most part, this panel is going to be extremely dark, so having this panel still maintain some light source, particularly a contrasting bright light source like green, will kind of help make the page not just melt. And then in this one, you know, like I said, for Shale, her tattoos are just line art. Lowen, I don't always put his face paint on because Lowen has to apply that, and it degrades. It degrades and wears away. You know, there were a couple of previous panels in previous pages where they had been tromping through the swamp all day, where on his neck it was starting to get smudged, and here he just doesn't have it anymore because they've sat down for night's watch. He's washed his face, and yeah, then they had to run because Cheshire fucked things up, right? So I don't always put those as a reminder for Lowen because I have to just remember the consistency between is he or is he not wearing his face paint or his war paint or his makeup, as Cheshire would call it. Whereas Shale, those are tattoos; they always have to be on her, and I don't have the excuse of, oh, they could just not be in this panel because she didn't put them on, because they tattoos.
They're tattoos.
You know? So for Shale, things like these splashes of color are a reminder, but also things like sometimes you will see me just, and I'm going to do this as an example now, but I probably would have done it eventually anyway, like just color someone's eyes. And that's because those are colors that are going to be there. And when I'm laying something out, oftentimes whether or not that color is displayed will make a difference in the finalized layout. And for instance, especially with this panel with Eintai, like that glow is the difference between whether you can see the silhouette of her body or not, because she also wears jet black and has jet black hair and basically dresses like a emo priest.
And has darker skin.
And has darker skin than everyone else. And so this area of lighting, it defines the edge of her hair, it defines the edge of her chest, of her hips, of her dress, of where her hand is. Like, this is very important, this lighting, because otherwise not only is it going to be a bland panel, but all of the black that's going to be here will meld into each other, and you won't be able to see any defined body shape in her. And so sometimes when I draw things like I add a splash of color or I color someone's eyes, it's because I'm taking into account how is this going to affect the final layout. And, you know, looking at, say, just Shale like this, I'm like, it's going to be really hard to see her because she's dark-skinned, she has black hair, at least her armor is a little lighter and her pike is a little lighter, but it's still going to be hard to see her. But at least by contrast, you have Lowen, who is very bright in coloration because he's that really light blue silver tone, and he's got his scales and everything, which in any light are going to shimmer. So if there's any light anywhere around them, you know, he's going to be a lot brighter, which now that I'm looking at it and talking about this, I actually realize that because of that, because this is the only color that's going to be on Shale, she needs to actually be moved further to the left and more to forward, and I need to move him further back and not in the main foreground, because otherwise he will take up all of the panel's attention. And so adding things like that and occasionally stopping to look at your layout does kind of help to essentially stage everyone. And also, if Shale were in a less stagnant pose, it would kind of help. But I drew her this way, and now she's probably going to stay this way. But it's okay, I think.
I mean, she's getting ready for action.
Right. Well, I mean, because she had this on her back earlier, so, you know, you just kind of have to take that into account. And, oh, no, actually, I think she was carrying it in her hands. Well, whatever. The point is that may change, but laying all this out helps to decide whether or not that needs to change, you know? And if I am going through and throwing down some color palette things, I can look at something and say, oh, this needs to go in another direction. Because, like, for instance, Eintai here, if she didn't have any glow, frankly, putting her hair out like this, although it does balance the image and is the better artistic choice, it would be unwise without any light source, because then it would just be a big black blob next to her, which would make her look kind of misshapen, and it wouldn't work well. In Alex's case here, it is going to be a very dark panel. His speech bubbles are actually going to do the most to bring contrast to that page, and your eye is naturally drawn to wherever the most contrast is. So, kind of leading with these bubbles being in quick succession of each other is another thing that's going to kind of help keep these panels from just flubbing together.
Right, just be a mixed mash of stock.
Especially
things
because
stuck together.
up here, this is already going to be dark. Now, at least Mimi's wings are very bright. They're not bright. They don't glow, but they are such a light color compared to everything else that is so dark that they stick out. So Mimi's wings are actually going to take up the bulk of the shape of this panel, and then down here, essentially, these are the most important leading for your eye to kind of assist readers in following the flow of action. And then coming through here, giving Shale a speech bubble, and not Lowen, because I actually realized that he is not going to have one because he doesn't talk much. But giving Shale a speech bubble brings more contrast to her area of the panel, which is good because Lowen is walking, talking contrast,
right,
both in personality and character design. But yeah, so that's the best explanation I can give of that, because it's not entirely a straightforward subject. Some of it is stuff that just comes with experience, and some of it is stuff that strikes me with whimsy, and some of it is stuff that is actually an important director's note that I've learned from studying how to make comics and write things competently. But yeah, so there is that, and then down here we're gonna have probably another split panel, which is gonna be nasty and full of gore.
Something for everyone.
Yes, we got magic, we got hot dudes, we got hot ladies, and then we got gore and. Yeah. What else do you need in life?
Hot scalies.
Hot scalies. And also adorable bards that you can't really see, but they're back there.
I think that you should usually be worried about a bard you can't see, but you know is back there.
Yeah, well, that's because most bards are bard rogues. Or bards that worship Aladamara.
They're brogues.
Yes. And rogues do it from behind. And bards just hide.
And also
do it from behind.
In a very different way.
But in very different ways. Yeah. So there is that. I'm going to kind of move away from that right now because it's frustrating me because I'm realizing that I've done things I didn't mean to do. And I'm going to work on some of this fine gentleman here.
Also, say something if you'd like to see a 3-inch pin of Alex pulling his bow back.
Yeah, because...
That seems like it might be a handsome pin.
I think so, too. And...
So we're always looking for input from our delightful patrons and participants on live streams.
Yes. And some shots are more dynamic than others, that is true. Because the sad truth of action and life is that although you can represent it in the most dynamic way that you possibly can 99.9% of the time, sometimes things just aren't dynamic and they're not pretty. Sometimes you just get bitch slapped
by a Chungus
zombie, and there's only so much you can really do with that. And actually, that's an at least I think an interesting point, and one of the reasons why I find that I roleplay well and why my characters have what most everybody else at the table describes as, and I quote, main character syndrome, is that I am 100% okay with that. I like the human experience for what it is. I like that not everything is dynamic and perfect and not everything works out, and that characters, just like other people, have to grow from mistakes and negatives and etc. And so when I play a character, I pay just as much attention to their failures as their successes, and frankly, depending on the character, sometimes more attention to their failures than their successes. For instance, my paladin has done a lot of fucking good. He really has. He's a good guy. He has gone out of his way at every corner to rescue everyone he can, save every life he can, spare every bad guy he can, make every friend he could, and resorts to violence last. But
Even with evil people.
yeah, even with evil people, even with trolls, okay? Like, if there is any opportunity whatsoever, any snowball's chance in hell that this could be a friend he just hasn't met yet, he is gonna do the Barbie thing and try to make them his friend, even if they would rather yeet themselves into a volcano than talk to him. Or be his friend and then yeet themselves into a volcano anyway. But the truth of the matter is, generally, especially good people, or good people especially who have suffered trauma, we tend to be our harshest critics. And that's true for really any people, but evil people I think less so, because they I don't want to say they care less about the consequences of their actions, because that's not true, but they care less about the effects their actions have on others as a general rule.
Right, as long as it works out for them, it doesn't matter.
Right. Whereas, say, someone like Gigi, he will beat himself up the whole month and a half trek back from his home city because he wasn't able to save everyone when said home city was overrun by undead. And you know what? It'll drive him crazy knowing there could be some survivors, and he'll go back and look for those survivors, and he'll actually find them and rescue them with surprisingly few losses, and still beat himself up on the way out, because if he'd have gone sooner, he could have saved more.
Yeah.
And, that is something that a lot of people, they don't pay attention to, especially in D&D, because I think a lot of people play D&D for escapism, and they don't want to feel like they're at fault for things, and they don't want to think about the consequences of their actions, or this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day, those things are important, and if you're going to play a character who is a sympathizable human being, then you have to acknowledge that character's faults and failures, and it can be in whatever way they would. But I actually had a writing discussion with a friend of mine who plays with us, and we both would write usually like an adventure log or a summary of what was up in the previous session, and he told me that, like, when there are things that his character isn't successful doing, like, he just leaves those out. Like, he doesn't mention when whoever doesn't actually hit. He just skips that round and talks about, like, the actions that he does commit that are successful. And I was like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that if that's all that's interesting to you, but you got to bear in mind that, like, when Cheshire fails, I acknowledge it, and it usually results in a meltdown.
Yeah, it's as impactful to them as their successes are.
In fact, for a lot of people, your failures are more impactful to you than your successes, because to some extent, and maybe this is just me because I have severe anxiety, and so I have a strong mindset of this, but, like, to some extent, you expect yourself to succeed. Like,
you don't take an action to fail.
Right. The expectation there is that you're doing this because you want it to work. And when it doesn't, especially in things that have life and death consequences, like, it matters to you if you aren't a sociopath. And frankly, it usually matters to you even if you are a sociopath, because if you're a sociopath, you're still doing things for a reason. Mm-hmm. I mean, my lawful evil sniper was a vengeful, angry human being who murdered a comrade because said comrade fucked up her best friend's face and almost killed her and her pregnant girlfriend by being stupid and committing friendly fire with a rocket. And her plan to silently murder him failed. And so then she had to live with the consequences of those things, and the way that she handled them definitely is different than the way that Gigi would have handled them.
Oh, for sure.
But she handled them, and, that was a consequence of actions, and, when we actually were just playing the other night, and I was playing my other sociopathic lawful evil sniper, who is an elf, who is a killer for hire, and he, for the most part, has only ever killed, regular people, politicians and shit, whoever could, afford his services. And he's never really been up against adventurers of his caliber, right? And he is a Deepwood Sniper Arcane Archer combination, so he can shoot someone from 1,000 yards away and they just die. Well, last session we were fighting some elite guard soldiers, and he just kept shooting them and kept shooting them and kept shooting them, and they just didn't die. And he was visibly disturbed by this.
He had to Boromir them, and that freaked him out.
It did, and he was just and at some point after about the third round of pumping arrows into them, I took the time to say, Zadaros's reaction to this is, he looks extremely put out as he knocks another arrow to his bow.
And Marlene is extremely put out as he continues to hold them in place for you.
Right? And he's just turning these guys into pincushions. And he's like, why aren't they dying?
He crit one guy in the heart twice.
Yeah, and he just still lived because the guy had 150 hit points, and frankly, even when you're the best built archer you can possibly be, your critical maximum damage at times 4 damage is still at least at his level, is I think 46 damage. And not 4d6, but 46 damage.
And I mean, you have to think, you're able to do that damage up to 2,000 feet away.
Yep.
Or 3,000 feet away. That's why it's so much lower.
Right.
But when that's enough to kill a regular person cold.
I mean, 8 damage is enough to kill a regular person. So when you do that,
I looked at at Bard, and I was just like, that's 5 times a regular person's hit points. And so of course he's freaked out. Yeah, you're totally right.
Right? So this particular sniper that I created, because he is the edgiest of fucking edgelords in the world, and like I said, I play evil a handful of different ways. I play it reasonable, childhood trauma has made you a bad person, all the way to you're basically a Saturday morning cartoon villain. And he is a creature of really extreme and strange habits. And so before he kills someone, he marks them for death with a custom death tarot card that he has a deck of just nothing but death tarot cards that he will have delivered to his mark by his fiendish owl familiar. And so he throws down these death tarot cards because his intent is to kill these soldiers, and then he just keeps shooting them and they don't die, and he's like, they've destroyed my ratio. And he's genuinely upset by this because normally it's a 1 arrow to 1 tarot card ratio. And he at one point had to send a message to someone else in the party, and all he had to write on was a tarot card. And so when he sent it, he had to then go collect the tarot card and destroy it, or else he would have to kill her out of compulsion to fulfill the contract.
Contract he made.
The contract he created. And he genuinely looked at her and was like, I just want you to know, as he ripped it up, I just saved your life. From the threat that he artificially created with his own neuroses. But, yeah, so it was extremely off-putting for him, and I think that it wouldn't characterize him anywhere near as much, especially because it was a very short, high-octane campaign. I think we only played 4 or 5 sessions.
Probably 4.
So I had to characterize him very strongly and very quickly, and it wouldn't characterize him anywhere near as much if I didn't pay attention to his failures, especially because he's the kind of person that expects success always from himself. It was a running joke at the table that he never lost his virginity because he doesn't lose. So, yeah, I mean, that kind of character, like, if you don't pay attention to when they lose in their own eyes, and basically no one else's, it creates an altogether very boring role-playing experience and a character that is generally unlikable, which he's already generally unlikable. So if he's unlikable and there's not even any reason why, and he's not even empathizable in any way, and you can't look at him and realize, oh, he's just kind of crazy, and it's a little endearing, then, you know, he's kind of a wasted
don't form
character.
Real bonds with each other either.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, you know, when you, much like in real life, if your character can't admit their fault in anything, they're not going to bond with people and they're not going to have good relationships. Because guess what? If in real life you refuse to face that you could be at fault for something, you're not going to have good relationships and your bonds with people are going to be frail and shitty. And they're only going to last through the very first conflict you ever have, because no one wants to be around people who refuse to take any blame in any situation.
People might give you one chance after the first.
And mentally ill generous people will give you 3 or 4. Speaking from personal experience.
You have to get away from people like that.
Yeah, you can't. And so, especially in like a high octane fantasy setting, that's incredibly true, because your life, or your party's lives are 100% on the line. And if this person is like, I mean, yes, I'm the cleric and I failed to heal you because I chose to do something else, like pick my toenails, but it's not my fault you died, then you're in a really bad situation and you get out of it as quickly as possible.
We're both really trying hard not to look at a certain character.
Right? Very hard. But that's the thing, is like, you know, sometimes, and sometimes as people, we fail our characters. Okay? I have played a character, for instance, that was immune to any kind of charm effect. And when that character got charmed, and then brainwashed, and then turned against the party, towards the end of the session, I looked at my character sheet and realized, oh yeah, I'm immune to fucking charm, and I have just done my character a great disservice,
and
because
it's way too late to go back and be like, well, that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's way too fucking late. So now I have to justify my characters failing to resist a charm that they are racially immune to. And that was hard, but what it ended up being was that, you know, yeah, by race, generally they're immune to this, but as a person, they're kind of weak-willed and a bit of an attention whore, and so when somebody charmed them and became their insta-friend, they clung to that and had to then overcome it on their own terms.
Yeah, because that character was also feeling very lonely.
Yes.
So it didn't...
It
made a sort of sense.
Yes. It made enough sense that I could justify that I broke the rules not in any way in my character's favor. And
But it's never been forgotten again.
It has never been forgotten again. I don't think they'd ever let me live it down, and suffice to say, this character remembers when I don't do things right by them. But I, also do things like send my paladin out alone into the fucking darkness to look for some random survivor who a group of other survivors said died trying to save them, but on the off chance that he could be alive, he's going to go look for him. And he does find him alive, but he's been overcome with a horrible disease, and so he throws him on his horse and books it back to camp with seconds to spare, forgetting that he once a week can just cure disease on people. And a word in my defense...
And ruined his soup.
It was late, and he did ruin his cocaine soup. But that was less important to him than saving a life. which was so important to him that he forgot he could save it right then and there. But you know what?
That's not the first time that's been forgotten.
It's not. It is not. And I would like to argue that the last paladin that forgot it because they weren't paying attention and they didn't have a 10 intelligence score.
And they were sleeping.
Yes. My poor paladin, he tries really hard, but he's wise enough to recognize that he's not smart enough to do things on his own sometimes. However, that unfortunately doesn't stop him from being incredibly impulsive and being like, fuck it, anyone else would slow me down, and I have to save this person right now. And so running away without the smarter people or the rest of the party or the cleric who could have healed them both. Because bear in mind, he also contracted this disease from the disease rescuee. And, yeah, it's a really good thing he got back to camp in time. Because paladins are supposed to be immune to disease, but this particular one was bred in a lab exclusively to hurt paladins. And he was like, I should be fine, and he was not fine. But, yeah, so we all make mistakes, and sometimes our characters make mistakes, and sometimes we make mistakes for our characters. And either way, we have to be able to face them if either us or our characters are going to grow from them. And it makes for a much more compelling character and a much more compelling argument ever in general if you can look at something and be like, oh man, I was wrong. And sometimes you have a character like Shale who doesn't really admit fault because Shale very rarely sees fault because Shale's job is kill things. And as long as Shale does that job, Shale's like, what? I did my job.
Yeah, what could you possibly be upset about?
Right? And it's like, well, you did your job, but you were an asshole. And Shale's like, so? I killed the thing. And that's how a lot of barbarians tend to be. And a lot of wizards tend to have a hard time admitting fault because they are so highly intelligent that a lot of them think the people around them are stupid and wrong. And I have found that a lot of wizard characters tend to be very arrogant. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
I mean, you're bending the powers of the multiverse to suit you.
Because your brain is so powerful and you have studied so hard, you can just do that.
Yeah, it for sure breeds arrogance.
So yeah, I mean, and even my lawful good wizard, who was not above admitting fault where it was to be had, very rarely found herself to be the one at fault. And generally speaking, because she was so intelligent and much more intelligent than most of the rest of the party.
I mean, more intelligent than us.
Way. Like, this is a character who was so smart that I often would just look at Ranger and be like, okay, look. I know Olwen knows the answer to this. I don't. Can I roll one of my 6 knowledges that she casually took, because why not, to see if she could figure this out? And he's like, yes. And then she would automatically pass the knowledge roll, of course, because she's not me, and I don't have a 30 intelligence, But that's the thing. When you have a 30 intelligence, and someone tells you, you're wrong, you go, excuse you, bitch. Please prove to me, preferably in the form of debate, why you're right and I'm wrong.
With cited sources.
Right? Because before Olwen makes a decision, she already considers all of her cited sources, which are just buried in the back of her head. And so generally speaking, her approach to being told she is wrong is, I will concede that if you can prove your point beyond a shadow of a doubt. And rarely people can, because when you're that smart, it's very easy to cast a shadow of a doubt on other people. That said, she did once go to trial for crimes she in fact committed, searched for days for loopholes in the law, because even though she committed a crime, it was to do the right thing, couldn't find it, and just pled guilty and accepted her death sentence. Because she was like, nope, you got me in a box, you're right. I was wrong, and by every technicality of your Plains law, which I have read, I committed a crime. And, that wasn't easy for her, especially because it carried a death sentence. Spoiler, she didn't die. There was a workaround, but, I was just like, I was sitting there at the table like, I might be about to consign my character to death, and she's like, my strong second favorite character, and I don't like where this is going, and I hate this, and I'm sad, but this is what she'd do, and so she did it.
This is what my character would do.
Right? Which is often used as an excuse to be incredibly shitty, but there are some people, like our dearly departed druid, who are like, well, I don't want to stop playing this character, and I love him and his animal companion, but frankly, yeah, they would yeet themselves into the volcano with his nymph wife because he has no life without her. And you're like, well, I gotta respect that you're sticking by your character, but also, you're my paladin's best friend, and you're the only one with a decent wisdom and intelligence score in the party besides him. Please don't do this! But, it's okay.
And it resulted in that character's player putting their hood on, drawing the drawstrings tightly, a little bit crying.
Like Kenny from fucking South Park level tightly drawn hood strings. And a lot of,
well, yeah, that's what I do.
And a whole lot of everybody waiting for there to be a last minute, oh, but he doesn't die, but there wasn't. And
that's not the DM that I am.
And then a whole lot of my paladin man crying, or just straight up ugly bitch crying on the way home, because that was his best friend and also his greatest source of wisdom and intelligence, his two greatest sources of wisdom and intelligence. And then there was like a vampire hiding among them, and he was like, I'm going to be smart about this like Rutland would be, and I'm not going to just smite him in the middle of a bunch of people and start a huge fight. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to single him out one night, and then I'm going to fight him.
It was wise.
And then he was wise up until that point where he failed a knowledge religion check to realize that there was absolutely no way he could turn a vampire, and decided to try to turn him rather than to just longsword him in the face. And then the vampire laughed at him and turned to mist and floated away and was like, well, I was gonna follow you until I figured out what happened, but clearly you didn't beat my vampiric master because you're a fucking goober. And so his little heart was a little sore, and his ego was a lot sore, and he's not a very proud man, so that's really saying something. Right. So he kicked some rocks and punched some other rocks and got really upset and started doing actual damage to himself. And then the cleric had to come over and mom him into calming down. And to which he responded loudly, "You're not my mom!" Shortly before he was like, okay, but would you heal my hand, please? But at the end of the day, I am willing to let my characters occasionally throw an immature temper tantrum because they're 19 and the weight of the fucking world is on their shoulders and their best friend just died. And, so that's why I get trusted with complex or evil or whatever other characters, and most of the rest of the table can't be trusted with fucking chaotic neutral. Because they all think that chaotic neutral is chaotic stupid, and by the way, hide the peanut butter because shit's about to go down. Oh dear. Not that I'm shitting on the rest of the people I play D&D with. I love them, and we have a lot of fun. But there are just some characters who show, and players, who show less restraint than, like, my sister did when she was playing with us when she was 14 and 13. So it's like, guys, come on. Come on. Yeah. So there you go. You get a D&D rant and an art rant. All in one.
We're good for lots of rants.
If you showed up to this stream and you thought you weren't going to get ranted at, then you clearly haven't seen any of the other streams.
That's probably true.
I mean...
But also, say in the comments what you want us to rant about.
Right? Yeah, because if you would like to hear a rant about the fucking Pillsbury Doughboy, I'm sure I can come up with one. But if you leave me to my own accord, you're going to hear about how much I hate The Legend of Korra and some random artifacts and how much I want to play a mermaid druid or a half
I thought about something.
fiend thought.
Can we just talk about for a minute how they gave no more information about Dragon Age 4 on Dragon Age Day on December 4th?
Yeah, it was literally December 4th.
The 10-year anniversary.
The 10-year anniversary, the
and they
4th day of the
said
month.
They were going to.
Yeah, they for real. The announcement beforehand was like, we are so excited to be able to celebrate Dragon Age coming up on the 10th anniversary of the series on the 4th of December. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, because it's the 4th game coming
They just did
out.
a bunch of interviews with producers and people.
Yeah, it was bullshit.
And I mean, some of them were actually pretty cool.
I don't care. I want Inquisition 2.
Yeah.
And yes, let it be said.
I heard
let
the speculation
be
is
on the record. I want Dragon Age Inquisition 2, not Dragon Age 4.
Yeah, because Dragon Age 4 is going to have a different protagonist if they hold up to
what they've always done. And the truth of the matter is that
because it's still going to be about Solace, and the Inquisitor's story is not over by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I mean you can say that they wrapped up like. There are a lot of heroes
because it ends with your Inquisitor being like, "We're gonna find him."
Oh no, not that one. I was gonna say of their other heroes, you can say that most of them were wrapped up. Now Hawk wasn't really, but that's because EA made them cut a bunch of shit out of the end of the game.
But it was still the story was wrapped.
But the
up.
story
and if
still
you
was concluded.
It's pretty wrapped up because you just can pretty much assume he's just gonna lead the city through the troubles.
Right, but So yeah, there are plenty of heroes that you can in Dragon Age series that you can say concluded their story. The Inquisitor is not one of them.
Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah, I mean
your story's over because you blew up,
or you didn't because your boyfriend blew up and all your friends abandoned you.
Yeah, and all the Grey Wardens are gone.
Right? So, I mean, truthfully speaking, like, Origins was very much a standalone game, and that's why your main character never makes an appearance in any of the other games, just some of their companions, if you didn't let them die. But 2 is a very, very personal story about Hawk and the city of Kirkwall, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but, so how wrapped up Hawk's story is kind of depends on how you play, which is why, depending on how you played, Hawk makes an appearance in Inquisition. Mm-hmm. And Hawk's appearance in Inquisition makes sense, and it belongs there, especially with Varric and Cassandra's parts in it. Like, you can...
because Varric and Cassandra are telling the
story of Dragon Age 2. Right. And so that...
that was beautiful.
Yeah, it was a super great tie-in. And it worked really well. It took a lot of planning. And it took a lot of planning. But then you turn around and you look at the Inquisitor, even if you bought the endgame DLCs, that actually only puts the Inquisitor on more of a cliffhanger.
All of them.
What do you want from me? Do you want to play Dragon Age Inquisition again? Because I will. You know I will.
Just play Alana again. I tried to play it again. I couldn't play anyone but Alana. Because they somehow made that story incredibly personal, but 100% as grand as Origins.
Yep.
That was wonderful.
And unfortunately, the story is the most personal if you choose to play a female elfin romance Solace, which... we did the first time we played through it, and so it all feels much less personal the next time you play through it. Mm-hmm. It kind of feels like a lot of the heart has been taken out of it because there is so much more to it. Now, that said, there are a lot of characters that we didn't really get to explore because we were so singularly focused on Solace because he's a fucking attention whore who will never have sex with you no matter what you do. Anyway, but I think that actually if you think about the character you make well beforehand, and if we took it in a really opposite direction than we did our previous Inquisitor...
Yeah, we did a female Canary. It still didn't work for me.
Okay. But I think it would, because I think we also played it too close to on the heels of our first playthrough.
Yeah, absolutely.
We played it a couple months after our first playthrough. I feel like
after I play Dragon Age 4, I will go back and do Dragon Age Inquisition in a different way.
Because we were still jonesing for Inquisition and our playthrough that had finished, but left on not one, but two cliffhangers. Yeah. So I think that we just tried to play it too close because it was like, I want more Dragon Age Inquisition, so let's play all the content we didn't play. But we just jumped into it and we're like, but this
isn't Alana.
But this isn't our headcanon character. And truthfully, that will always be my main headcanon Inquisitor is the first one we played. But that is not to say I couldn't love an Inquisitor that loved Cullen.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
the whole story is
story is beautiful,
and we were engaged in Cullen, Varric, Cassandra, Solace, and
that was about it.
Liliana. But we were deeply engaged in 5 characters, and that was still 80 hours.
Yeah, and we missed out on a lot of other characters
because we just simply didn't have the personal or game time.
Yep.
To do it.
Well, and also a lot of what happened. We picked a character who was so singularly focused on Solace, and because much like how I developed my Deepwood Sniper. We kind of sat down and were like, how do we make the most elfy elf ever, who ever elfed? Because if you're going to play an elf, you might as well jump in both feet on the ground, especially if you're somebody who feels like there's a disproportionate amount of elf love in fantasy settings. But, so we made the most elfy elf who ever elfed. So she was Dalish, and all of her interests were in elven culture and elven oppression, and she was immediately attached to Solace, and it took her a long time to warm up to all the other characters.
So she already related to Solace on a whole nother level.
So, there was the mage oppression, there was the elf oppression, and Solace very much stands as a beacon against those things, and everyone else has their own opinions, some of which vary from wishy-washy to extremist, and you can bring them around to your side, or you can be like, fuck you, I hate you, and that is the advantage of role-playing and being able to make decisions for your character. But we made a character who was so invested in everything that Solace stood for that, of course, she was perfect to romance him. And that unfortunately meant she was not invested in a lot of other things that she saw as petty human problems. So a lot of characters fell to the wayside because they didn't get along with Alana. That said, a lot of them are really interesting, great characters that
Sarah really didn't like Alana.
No, not at all.
Alana didn't like her.
And Alana didn't like her. And the like ghost kid or whatever he is, who's actually a spirit from the Fade. Kid. Even though she should have been interested in him because she was a mage, I think we talked to him like twice.
Because we never went looking for him.
And you have to look for him because that's the whole thing. Is he's
never in the same spot.
Right.
Well, unlike everyone else.
Right, and we didn't have enough time really to look for him as players, but also Ilana didn't care. And so, but that
because we would have found him if she cared.
Right, but that said, I have seen plenty of other playthroughs and read plenty of other remarks about other characters that have made me go, oh, we really missed out on this character, or we really missed out on this opportunity. And it's just like in Mass Effect, like if you don't romance Garrus or Tali, they get together. And you can completely miss that. If you don't pay attention to them and you don't interact with them a lot, you can miss the scene where you catch them kissing, essentially. And it's actually really quite delightful. And Iron Bull and, what's his name? It starts with a D. He's the mage from Tevinter.
Oh.
Darius? Yeah, I think it's Darius. Once again, a character we missed out on grossly, which is a shame because he's delightful. Iron Bull and Darius will get together, actually, if you take them on missions together a lot.
We deeply disapproved of the Tevinter Empire.
Yeah, but we deeply disapproved of the Tevinter Empire, and thus Alana kind of shooshed Darius to the side, even though she necessarily shouldn't have, because he also disapproves of the Tevinter Empire, but he also stands for a lot of what it is, and looks like a lot of what it is. And Iron Bull just fulfilled a party role we didn't need, and also Ilana was a tiny elf girl who didn't really understand the Coon and didn't want to. And even though he was a mercenary, he still had Kunari ideas.
Oppression.
Elven
oppression.
Because even though the elves following the Coon are less oppressed, they're still oppressed. So she kind of shunted both of those characters, and so we never took them around with one another. But yeah, it turns out if you go on lots of missions with the two of them, and they have the opportunity to bond, and you don't romance either of them, they will get together.
But to bring this all back around, that happens in our D&D too.
It sure does.
I've been trying to reinforce over and over and over, and I think the only one who listens is of the original group is Rachel, that the world goes on without your characters, and then everyone finally got it and listened when something happens, something horrible happens,
Mm-hmm.
and I think everyone's gonna get it again soon.
There are things I can't say. But suffice to say that conspiracy that I was screaming at Ranger about a while ago.
Fairly soon.
All right. Well, guys, we're getting ready to wrap up. My hand hurts and my voice hurts, and we're very tired. If anyone has any questions, now's a great time to express them. And once again, look for us at PowerCon in March
14th.
March 14th in Florence, South Carolina, and keep an eye out on our social media, and because we will probably have some exclusive promotions surrounding PowerCon, but right now we have exclusive giveaways of our 4-inch character, or 5x7, something like that. Anyway, they're character prints. They're like basic photo size. Or if you're a patron and you win, you actually win a collage, which is a much higher dollar value, but we wanted to give an extra thank you to our patrons. And in order to be entered into those contests, you have to like and follow our Facebook page and share the contest post from the Facebook page, or like and retweet our Twitter contest and be following the Twitter. And that is going to be announced on the 23rd, so a day before Christmas Eve. We'll announce a random 2 weeks from now we'll announce a random winner, and then those prizes will be mailed out if you're a patron with your other patron items or Patreon items and rewards, or if you're not a patron, congratulations, we'll be getting your information. But yeah, so we have giveaway contests going on right now, and then we will likely have some form of giveaway or promotion like we did with Atomicon for PowerCon as well. So keep an eye on the social media and share. Please. Please aggressively share everything, because aggressively sharing everything means there will be more people on the streams, means there will be more people reading the comic, we'll get more patrons, we'll be able to put up more content, and thus we'll be able to do more giveaways and give everybody more cool free stuff, because we'll have more stuff to give away.
But I imagine everyone that's listening right now would be ecstatic if we could post more than every other week, as would we.
Yes.
That would be the dream.
Yes, and basically, the more support we garnish from Patreon, the more we are able to create and provide content, and we really appreciate that you tune in for our live streams, and we appreciate our patrons. Just so much, and it means a lot to us, and getting our name out there is the best way to meet more wonderful people who will support what we do. And the larger our community gets, the more we're capable of doing. And Anyway, that's it for our stream, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. And look for this page to be posted this upcoming Sunday. And we will see you next time, and happy holidays, everybody.